Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys of Magic. This is Hunter and Steven. Set up, Steven.
Hello.
We are back. That is right. It is time for the pre-con upgrades to Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Steven, you have had the opportunity to upgrade the Quick Draw deck. That's right. It is the Is It deck. Before we get started, we are going to be doing the face commander of the deck. Is that right?
Yep, I am sticking with Stella Lee.
Perfect. Before we talk about her, I just want to let everybody know we're doing something a little different for this cycle of precons. We've decided to go ahead and do an upgrade to the 100 and no. Before we get started, I just want to let everybody know that we are doing something a little different for this round of precons. We all like the backup commanders of our decks. So we're going to be doing a $100 and $300 upgrade to the backup commanders. That's going to be exclusive over on our Patreon. So if you guys wanted to see those as well, check out the link in the description for our Patreon and consider subscribing. But this is a $100 upgrade for the face commander, Stella Lee. Steven, before we get into all of your awesome additions, go ahead and talk to me. Talk to me about Stella Lee.
Yeah, so the face commander is going to be Stella Lee Wildcard. This is one, a blue and a red. It's a legendary creature, human rogue, and it's a 2/4. She also says, whenever you cast your second spell each turn, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. So really fun ability here. So allowing us to really just kind of like utilize our deck a little bit more than normal. She also says you can tap. Copy target instant and sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Activate only if you cast 3 or more spells this turn. When I first read this, I was like, that's a bit aggressive. But obviously, it's Is It Spellslinger, so we're going to have some fun with it.
Yeah, is it Spellslinger? Quick draw, just pew, 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 right?
I hope so.
Yeehaw, cowboy. So let's go ahead and get started right into it. Talk to me about some of these awesome additions you're throwing into this deck to make it better.
So I definitely wanted to take advantage of some of the newer cards that got revealed. So the deck price might be a little bit different now than it will be in the future, because obviously pre-release pricing is a little aggressive. But the first card I want to talk about is going to be a Planeswalker. It is Jace Reawakened. This is 2 blue for a Planeswalker. Obviously, his name is Jace. It starts off at 3 loyalty, and it says you can't cast a spell during the first, second, or third turns of this game. Kind of crappy, because obviously it's 2 mana, so you could easily play it turn 2. But really cool abilities here, really going to allow us to kind of work with Stella. So the first loyalty ability is a +1, draw a card, then discard a card. The second loyalty ability is another +1, which is insane to think about. You may exile a non-land card with mana value 3 or less from your hand. If you do, it becomes plotted. So really trying to help us get to those 3 spells. Also, just a lot of the spells in this deck being able to be plotted. It's going to be a good time. It's -6, which is its ult. Until end of turn, whenever you cast a spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. Obviously, we're trying to copy, cast, and just have a whole bunch of fun. So this is a really good card.
Jace is one of the great mages of Magic, and I can see the new one sliding in here perfectly. Yeah, that plot mechanic is going to be really good for your deck, since you're going to be able to plot cards and then cast multiple cards a turn and really take advantage of your commander.
100%. Plus, I mean, I do love that its ult says whenever you cast a spell, so it doesn't matter if it's a creature, enchantment, instant, sorcery, artifact, you're just going to copy it.
Yeah, Jace is pretty good here. But that looks like the only Planeswalker you're throwing in here. Talk to me about some of the creatures.
So the first creature I want to talk about is actually going to be from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. This is Fibblefip, Lost on the Range. It is 1 and 2 blue. It's a legendary creature, Homunculus. It's a 1/1. It also has Ward 2, which is really fun. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. The top card of your library has plot. The plot cost is equal to its mana cost. You may plot non-land cards from the top of your library. So kind of wanted to get back into the plot. This deck, funny enough, even though you're trying to cast multiple spells, didn't really have like a whole lot of plot theme. And I kind of wanted to put it in, especially with Jace and then Fibblefip as well.
Yeah, this is a fantastic include in your deck. He's not lost. He's found a home in your deck.
Oh, he's found a home. He can stay with me as long as he wants. Next up, we have Balmor, Battle Mage Captain. This is a blue and a red for a legendary creature, Bird Wizard. It's a 1/3, but don't let that fool you. It has flying, and it also says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain trample until end of turn.
Yeah, this is still in standard, and I've seen it do a lot of damage, so I can only imagine it in your deck.
Yeah, this card's pretty nuts in our deck. There are a ton of token creators in our deck that when you play an instant or sorcery spell or even copy, it's creating something for you. So just building a super large board state and then pumping it, giving them trample, whether they're on the ground or in the sky, it's going to get pretty aggressive. This is probably a card you want to kill as soon as you see it.
Yeah, even your backup commander makes 4/4 dragons with prowess. That's pretty nuts.
Oh, yeah. So these next two cards do have a back half, but let's go ahead and get into the front half, which is always really fun. So first up, we have Bergie, God of Storytelling. This is 2 and a red for a legendary creature god. It is a 3/3, and then whenever you cast a spell, add red. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. And then creatures you control can boast twice during each of your turns rather than once. The boast obviously is flavor text here. We're really looking for that add red mana whenever we cast a spell. Just really trying to get as many spells out as possible, and this is definitely going to help us out.
Yeah, man. Bergie is really, really good in any kind of spell slinger deck. Just being able to use that mana on any phase during your turn never goes away. It's so good.
Yep, and then the back half of Bergie is going to be Harnfell, Horn of Bounty. This is 4 and a red. It's a legendary artifact. You can discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. So a little bit of, double interaction here. So if Bergie is going to be better for us in the early game, or if we draw a little bit later in the late game when we're trying to find something in particular in our deck, this will definitely help us out. And the last creature I'm adding is going to be Urbrask. This is a fun card that I really enjoy. This is 2 and 2 red, legendary creature Phyrexian Praetor. It's a 4/4, and it's got first strike, so watch out, buddy. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Urbrask deals 1 damage to target opponent, and then you add a red. You can pay a red, exile Urbrask, then return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery and only if you've cast 3 or more instant or sorcery spells this turn. Obviously, we're in a deck where we're trying to cast 3 or more anyways because of our base commander, so this is pretty good for me. I really do enjoy the front side of this. We're adding that extra red. It's going to be a good time. And then the back half is the Great Work. This is a enchantment saga. So after you exile Urbrask, it's going to come back like this. It's going to be on that first lore counter, which says the Great Work deals 3 damage to target opponent and each creature they control. I'm going to hurt you, and I'm going to hurt you bad. You better not have any tiny boys. The second lore chapter here is create 3 treasure tokens, and the third and final chapter says until end of turn, you may cast instant or sorcery spells from your graveyard. If a spell cast this way would be put into the graveyard, exile it instead, and then you exile the Great Work, then return it to the battlefield, and it's back to Urbrask, baby.
Yeah, Urbrask is very good here. That front half is really good, and then the back half, if you really need it, you can flip it whenever you need to. It's great flexibility.
Yeah, just kind of having like a little small board wipe on the back half on that first lore chapter is pretty good. So, I mean, it's definitely something that I was pretty excited about and wanted to play around with.
Yeah, for sure. But those are all the creatures. This is a spell slinger quick draw pew pew spells all over the place deck in the term of sorcery and instants. So let's get on to that part. This is the sorcery department. What do we got?
Yeah, so this deck did come pretty stocked with some good sorceries already. Instants, not so much, but I did add a couple of sorceries here. So first one up is Gadaxian Probe. This is either a blue or a Phyrexian blue. So you can pay 2 life if you don't want to pay that, mana cost. But yeah, look at target player's hand. Figure out what they got going on. Maybe try and play around a counterspell. And then you draw a card. For 2 life, I think that's pretty good.
That is pretty good, man. That's kind of know exactly what someone's doing. And
yeah, Get Probe's pretty good.
Counts as a spell too. Draws you a card. Continues the spell chain.
I really do enjoy the flexibility here, whether we're paying with mana or paying with our life. Just being able to, maybe save up mana for another spell to try and get to those 3 spells. Or if you're trying to do some storm shenanigans, I think Get Probe's got a special place in a lot of decks. Next up, we have Jessica's Will. This is 2 and a red, very well known, especially in Commander. Probably one of my favorite cards in Commander, to be honest with you. But it has a little fun story here. It says, choose one. If you control a commander, as you cast a spell, you may choose both. You can add red for each card in target opponent's hand, and then you can also exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. Always really good, whether you're trying to use both modes or just try and get your commander out a little bit easier. Maybe your commander's been killed a few times, and you need that extra mana, just for a little help.
Yeah, it's really awesome that they reprinted this card in the last set in Murders of Karlov Manor Commander. So get them while you can. The card came down in price a little bit Hopefully it continues to do so, but I love the include here. Okay. Once again, those are the sorceries. Let's move to the instance.
Yep. So I added a really fun one here. It's Cerulean Wisps. It is 1 blue. It says target creature becomes blue until end of turn, and then untap that creature. Draw a card. 1 mana to draw a card is really good. Plus, Stella has that tap ability to copy target instant sorcery spell. So being able to untap her and then retap her and then just have some more fun shenanigans, I think would be really fun. I also added Mystical Tutor. This is also 1 blue. Search your library for an instant or sorcery card, reveal that card, shuffle your library, then put that card on top of it. So just trying to find the perfect card for what we need. And that's going to be a really good time, and I'm very excited for that.
Situations are situational, and that's a perfect way to figure out the situation quickly.
That was a statement.
And it looks like those are the only couple of spells you're adding. You did mention that they had a very hefty package already in the deck, so I can see that you might need help in terms of an artifact. This is a really good one. What's this?
Yeah, so this is Mind Splice Apparatus. This is 3 and a blue for an artifact with flash. This has to be probably, I mean, an include in this deck no matter what you're doing, whether it's a $100 or $300. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, put an oil counter on Mind Splice Apparatus. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each oil counter on Mind Splice Apparatus.
Yep. So good.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I added creatures, and once we get to the removal, spoiler, I didn't actually remove any creatures. This deck actually came pretty well balanced when it came to creatures in my mind. A lot of the creatures are token generators. A lot of the creatures are cost reduction for your instance and sorcery spells. It is pretty good, and just kind of adding on to that with an artifact that's a little bit harder to kill, I think it's just going to be a good time. And the fact that it has flash, you play this, on somebody's end step right before your turn. That way, when it's your turn, you already have that cost reduction. It's a great card.
Yeah, man. It is definitely an include in those Spellslinger decks. It gets out of hand very quickly. But let's finish it up. Looks like you added a couple of lands. Talk to me about your mana base.
Yeah, I can't wait till we get to the removals because you guys are going to see a different amount of cards. But I did add 2 lands, so I did add a pathway. This is Riverglide Pathway. You can either play it on the blue side or the red side. And then I also add a Training Center. This is the Bond land. I really do love these cards. So this will come in tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. Fun fact, we're in Commander. Very rarely will this card come in tapped, but this does tap for a blue or a red.
All right, perfect. And is that all your additions?
Those are all my additions.
All right, well, let's move on to the cut section. That's right. We have to make room for all those awesome cards you added. You mentioned you didn't cut any creatures, but you are starting off with some sorceries. What are these sorceries we're cutting?
Yep. So these sorceries, if you guys know me from watching the channel, I'm kind of big on removing higher cost cards, trying to keep the deck as low to the ground as possible. Especially in a deck that we're trying to do spell slinging and play multiple spells. That's pretty much the reason why these cards got cut. So first up is Deep Analysis. This is 3 and a blue. Target player draws 2 cards. It also has flashback. Pay 1 and a blue, pay 3 life. I get the flashback. There's definitely ways in this, deck to discard this card, or if it just kind of gets milled, perhaps flashing it back is definitely the best way to get it. But paying 4 to draw 2 cards was definitely not something I wanted to do. I also got rid of Tezzeret's Gambit. This is 3 and a Phyrexian blue, so we can either pay the blue or pay the 2 life, draw 2 cards, and then proliferate. There's not too much to proliferate in this deck. Obviously we have Mind Splice and Jace, but the chances of drawing this card and having those cards out, literally 1 in 100. Again, I'm not big on paying that much mana to draw just 2 cards. If I had more proliferation, I probably would have kept it in there. And then the last one is Elemental Eruption. This is 4 and 2 red. Create a 4/4 red dragon elemental creature token with flying and prowess. It also has Storm. I understand that this card in a Spellslinger deck is really good because of the Storm. My only issue is it is 6 mana. So unless I have found a way in a $100 upgrade to make infinite mana, this card was just not good for me whatsoever. 6 mana plus hopefully whatever I had beforehand just didn't make sense.
Yeah, usually at a point in the game, if you're getting this off, someone's going to wipe the entire board. But I could see why you cut all of these sorceries. Looking like a couple of instances as well. Is that right?
Yep, 2 instants. So I got rid of Radical Idea. This is 1 in a blue, draw a card, jumpstart. You may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card. In addition to paying its other cost, then exile this card. I like this card. I like the fact that it has like a pseudo flashback, but 2 mana to draw one when the deck has tons of card draw already. It didn't make sense. I also got rid of Think Twice, 1 in a blue, draw a card. Again, flashback for 2 in a blue. Uh, there's plenty of card draw cantrips in this deck. I just didn't really need these two.
Makes sense. If you got the card draw in there, you don't need extra card draw. Looking at a 1-to-1 artifact swap, what is the artifact you're taking out for Mind Splice Apparatus?
Yeah, so this is Leyline Dowser. This is 2 mana for an artifact. It's pay one, tap it, mill a card. You may put an instant or sorcery card milled this way into your hand, and then you can also tap an untap legendary creature you control, untap Leyline Dowser. Unless Fibble flips on the battlefield and we don't really know what's on the top of our library, we could be milling something important, whether it's a creature that we really needed or something else. I didn't really want this card in my deck, and I don't honestly think I'd put this card in any deck.
Yeah, it's a bummer because you're the mill guy.
I am the
Granted,
mill guy.
Granted, it is self-mill, so it's not as good as you milling your opponents, but I can see why you cut this card out.
Yeah, it's pretty slow too.
Now, you did allude to the people that you are cutting way more lands than you are adding. I do see a lot here. What are the ones you're cutting?
Yeah, so this deck came with 38 lands. I am of the mindset that I think 34 is perfect. I think 34 is a perfect amount of lands for pretty much every commander deck, unless you're trying to do some fun shenanigans with some other stuff. So I did cut it to 34 lands with the 2 additions that I had. I did get rid of 6 lands. I added those 2 to get us to the 34, but the removals are going to be Cascade Bluffs, fun little filter land. After watching Shane's Precon upgrade with all those filters, it made me want to hate them. So I got rid of it. Frostboil Snarl. This enters the battlefield tapped unless you reveal an island or mountain card from your hand. Won't be that hard because there are quite a lot of basic islands and mountains in this deck. But again, this deck actually did not have a lot of lands that say come in tapped. So I was just like, what's the point of even keeping it? I also got rid of Temple of the False God. I normally keep this in my 100, but to be honest with you, with the fact that the mana base was pretty simple, just got rid of it. And then I got rid of 1 island and 2 mountains.
All right, I can see why I get rid of those. I always cut Temple of False God and chopping down the lands just a little bit. If you have a low curve, I can see it working out. So is that going to do it, Steven? Is that the final upgrade to the Quick Draw deck?
That is it, Hunter. Those are my additions and my removals.
Awesome. So if anybody's still watching, check the description down below for the Moxfield link to check out Steven's entire deck list. Go ahead and play test it yourself. Steven, we gave you $100. What was the price of the entire upgrade?
Pretty proud of myself here, buddy. It was $99.79 at the time of this recording. Like I said earlier, there were some pre-release cards in here, so the prices might fluctuate and actually might be a little cheaper for you in the future.
Yeah. So you made it. You hit the budget. Proud of you.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome. Obviously, we are going to be doing the gameplays and whatnot, so you want to stay subscribed. So hit that subscribe button and like this video. But before we wrap things up, Steven, talk to me. What are your final thoughts on the deck itself?
So, final thoughts on Stella Lee. She's a fun commander. I really do like the fact that it's first ability there when you can, whenever you play your second spell each turn, you're looking at the top card of your library, kind of gives you a little idea to what you want to do on your next turn. I really do wish there was a little bit more plot mechanic in this deck. When I first saw it spoiled, that's what I thought this deck was going to be, just a bunch of plotting, so that way you could, sling those spells a little bit, a little bit more carelessly, if you will. I do think it's going to be kind of hard to get those 3 spells because at that point you've pretty much dumped your entire hand, and without kind of going into a higher budget and having really really good cheap card draw, it might just be a little tough.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm excited to see this deck in action. Once again, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, so you're staying up to date. So you will be here for all of the other Precon upgrades. We are doing a 300 as well as the $100 and $300 gameplays. Don't want to miss any of that. In the description, you will find links to our social media accounts. That's TikTok, that's Twitter, and that's Instagram. It's @Guys at Magic for each one. Don't want to miss out. So go ahead and follow us on those. on the screen right now. Those are all of our Patreon subscribers. Thank you guys so much for subscribing. Once again, we are doing all of the $100 and $300 upgrades for the backup commanders for all of these. So if you wanted to see those, check the description for our Patreon link and consider subscribing. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Bye.